I'm going to just simply start. Hello and good afternoon. Well, midnight, midday, whatever. My name is Amaya Espindola. I'm the new president of the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society. And today I simply wanted to try to answer a question which is surrounding the raw feeding, is whether we are insane or is common sense for you. And we're going to base that on the vet-client relationship. But first, a little bit about me, and you'll understand if I get stuck sometimes. I'm not native English, so I hope you understand that. I'm originally from Argentina. I'm a veterinary surgeon, certified in feline medicine and veterinary nutrition in Spain. I'm registered at RFVS and the Mallorca College, and now president of Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, and an entrepreneur. I have my own company, which is Velvet, which I provide an holistic health, nutritional, and behavioral support for cats. I usually collaborate with clinical practice vets. So, a little bit of an introduction as well of what the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society is that we are motivated vets. We are people that question everything. Even what I'm about to say, we also question everything, and we're always evolving, and we are not afraid to make mistakes. And as long as we can keep learning and keep ourselves motivated and passionate about what we talk about. This includes vets, vet nurses, paraprofessionals now, enthusiastic pet owners with this common interest in species-appropriate nutrition in dogs and cats, and any animal, if that's what's the matter. So our goal here is to inspire vets and vet nurses to safely advise about raw feeding and open a little bit your mind today about what is a species-appropriate nutrition. Show that there is enough evidence to support raw feeding, and you can ask for that evidence after that in our stand in the Q12. And we will happy to debate whatever questions and concerns you have afterwards. And also to help clients that already made the choice, because we are going to discuss this too. After all, it's their choice and it's a freedom of choice. So just starting with the first steps is we need to understand our situation today, which is meet the pet guardians and the veterinarians where they are today. Also understand that it's not about all or nothing. We can have middle grounds, we can have small steps and move forward to that until we actually experience the benefits or whatever. I mean, this has to be an open-minded way of working. Understand also that no one size fits them all, and we need to understand how to help our clients if they already made that decision, right, and not lose them or lose their trust, and find where we can find good resources in order to understand a little bit more about this type of nutrition. So the pet guardians today are actually very aware of the benefits of unprocessed foods and the different diet choices. If we look at human nutrition, we will see that people have different philosophies. There are vegans, vegetarians, carnivores, even people that only eat raw food as well. And but they all have this sense. We are all in this movement of real food and getting away from the processed type of food. This, they translated their own health into their pets, and they're demanding to have more information and more resources, evidence-based information to the vets. Sometimes they started actually trying with their pets and say, I'm going to try a little bit of meat, and they experience some benefits, but then they are not sure they are doing properly or not. Maybe they study, maybe they look for the resources and start, getting involved into this, and they experience this improvement in pets' general health, or maybe they had a chronic disease and they got better. There are many of those. And only in the UK we have an increasing of 20% of raw feeding guardians, and at the same time the trust into the veterinary professionals is going down. So this is my goal today, is to understand that we have to help those clients, and every single client, despite of the choice they made for the food, and because they have the decision, and it's a very emotional topic, and we're going to talk about that. So most vets today, if we start, in our current practices, we have little time to actually sit down and talk about nutrition, talk about everything, because there's a shortage of veterinarians first, and then we start moving in this pace that it's really fast, and sometimes we forget to even ask the regular questions. We are losing that, that interaction with our client. We also have these few board vet nutritionists available, and most of them are not for external consultation. They are more in the marketing department of food production. Also, that this is one of my concerns, so this is kind of personal. We are concerned about if the guardian is doing it right, because we can say, well, what are you feeding raw? This could mean a lot of things. And we need to know what those things are. And sometimes we all faced the bone stuck in the intestines. We all faced the contaminations or the nutrition deficiencies. I actually come from a country that natural feeding means a lot of rice and a little bit of meat, because that's what the common knowledge is. But that doesn't mean that that's appropriate, and that doesn't mean that is raw feeding as well. And so we know that they can make those mistakes, and it's our job as a professionals to educate them into doing it a better way. But if then we have the other scenario where we just feed processed food without questioning. We are questioning all the time whatever is happening in raw, but we are not really questioning what's happening on the ultra-processed industry. So how can we change this? How can, make it friendlier for everyone and peaceful? First of all, understanding that feeding, having a choice as a pet guardian of what I'm going to feed my pet is a very emotional topic. They are trying to give the best to their pets. They are sometimes they have even issues themselves with food, and they have an interaction and a way to feel a feeling about food, and they transmit that to their pets. So this is very important. Food can also be a nutrient like love, right? The amount of love I'm giving you is the amount of nutrient or nutritional love. So we have to stop being offensive, causing guilt, and criticizing whatever diet it is. We can always go around, we can always get more information and give our opinion, whatever that is, and go from there. And ask new questions. Because if we don't, what happens is people start lying to the vets, or maybe stop going to the vet because they don't trust it. And do we actually want that? If we isn't it better if we just simply try to help them as best as we can? And if we don't have the time, we can train our staff, for example, the nurses, to ask those questions. We have technology also to help us doing that, and also we can. How do you say this? Well, I forgot what I was going to say. Don't worry, it's later on. So another way to be the change is learn from what we know about human nutrition. There is no general physician that is ever going to suggest the same processed food 24/7 to any individual. We also know and have evidence-based research. We have a lot of that about additions to diets. If we add supplements, we have some benefits. So we know that they are, there's nothing complete and perfect. There is something we can do, something to improve it and make it better. So that's the first question. What are we feeding? How can we make it better? How can we adapt to individual instead of a group? Highlight that also, and we have also this coming from human nutrition and also some papers in veterinary nutrition, that minimal processing and these cooked additions also have shown some improvements. We know if we supplement with omega-3s or antioxidants or taurine, also we have certain benefits. So this is the first question. I mean, we have something to add, we have something to adapt to individual. Maybe we have to move away a little bit from the process and the branded formula and start going at the pace you want, going to the more individual nutritional needs your client has. And when we say that it's not about all or nothing, is that we don't have to make radical changes. We can start with these additions of minimal processed food, a little bit of cooked food, a little bit of supplementation, and go from there and see if we see benefits. Then we can refer. If we don't have the time, we can ask questions and stuff. But we have to understand that nutrition, it depends on the point of view. It can be complicated or very simple. Because if we look at it in the biochemic way, then it is complicated. We have to go very deep levels in chemistry to actually analyze, and it's impossible to have all the answers. It's impossible to have an ideal diet that will work for everybody. Also, at the end of the day, how many of you actually measure the calcium and phosphorus ratio of what you feed to your kids? So on the other hand, we know that if we do a varied nutrition and if we feed our children or our pets in a way that it actually makes a little bit of sense, we are not looking for books to feed our kids. So if we get into this variety idea, we can say that nutrition is not that complicated. Okay. Then we have these formulations for breeds that are not enough. They are a little bit closer, but this is not enough. Still, we have the individual to look for. And so the goal here is to start looking at each client with a little bit more time, or someone else doing it, the job, but to analyze it, every single individual. That's very, very important. And there's something that can actually improve the relationship we have with our clients. Okay? And then we had to be very respectful to whatever philosophies that human client has. Because I know vegans that already feed to their carnivores meat, for example, and they have to make their choice, but there are others that won't. So we always, kind of psychology here, we have to get into a little bit of that. But no, I know nobody told us that we're going to be more in the psychology department. But sadly, we don't talk directly to our pets. We talk to the humans, and we need to go around them in order to get results and get a really nice relationship with them. And when we say it's not about all or nothing, we can also discuss a little bit the AAFCO nutritional protocols, how they were created, and how can they be useful in one side, and how we have to little bit step away or question a little bit what they are doing. This was created to have a minimum and maximum nutrient profile, which is not perfect, of processed foods, because every time you cook it, you process something, you have a loss of nutrient and digestibility. So it's important to know what they're doing. So they measure and they have a nutrient profile, which, okay, we can work with that. But the trials are made in a very small sample of animals. Usually it's about 6 to 8 dogs They don't have to finish the whole process, I mean, for non-nutritional reasons, but and as long as 25% of them finish the program, that test is valid. So you can have a very, very small sample for a period that is not enough to actually make this assessment, which is 6 months. And they don't test for a specific nutrient deficiencies. Still, it's focusing on a group and not a complete an individual itself. So we are relying on this without questioning, and what I'm asking you is to have a little bit of more curiosity. That's what, to be honest, is what brought me into the veterinary medicine, is to be curious and to learn and to have more than one species to talk about, because that is not, in human, doctors only focus on one, and we have to know a lot about many. So our curiosity is there, and we like to look differences. We like to diagnose. That what keeps us excited to go to work every day. So it's important that we start doing that in nutrition as well. And then when we talk about raw feeding, it's not like we say, oh, this is not working. We use whatever we can from there. If we want to formulate, we use NRC and AAFCO nutrient profiles. This is a good database, okay? We have something to start with. Maybe we have to create something better, but we have something to start with. But then we add the variety over time that we use as mothers or fathers here around. And we always make small changes. If you don't feel safe to do this, then you can ask your client to come more often to the practice, to analyze, to test it, and we have more data. That will be amazing. And then, I know sometimes when I see people that are resistant to actually try these things, most of the complaints are concerns that they have about their clients. How can they tell if they're doing the proper thing or not? And in my years of practice, I had the problem with bones. I have the problem of bacteria, well, more parasites, let's say. I have nutrient deficiencies. I faced all those things, all those challenges, with maybe sometimes with processed food and non-processed food. Because I can say that maybe the pet was fed processed food, but every now and then was given a bone, and that's it, and the bone was cooked, and the bone was coming from a barbecue without any meat. So this is different. This is our job, is to educate and tell them that that's not the proper bone to feed, and we have to feed the proper thing, the good thing, right, and make it better. So when we talk about bacteria or parasites, we need to understand that every single food is a source of contamination. All of it. I don't know if you experience how pets actually storage their bags of food. I've seen it in a worse place. Like, even if you say keep it in a really well closed or something. I've seen many disgusting things during years of home consultation. Then there's a study that says that the kitchen is like the most contaminated place, whether you have a pet or not. So there is another source of contamination that we have to look into. We have to look into the pet's lifestyle, because most dogs will eat poop, okay? Or they go outside, or they get into messy places that doesn't have to do with they're fed. And our part, which is the excessive use of antibiotics and dewormers that disbalance our gut. And we are learning about the gut health, the microbiome. This is very new. It's not blaming anyone, because we all used antibiotics until we learned that, we have to take care of the gut, we have to take care of the microbiome. This is very important. But this is our part, to be responsible, understand that unbalanced gut, it will mean easier to contaminate. If we have a landfill, like it's a sterile landfill, we will have easier contamination because there's nothing to compete on. Instead, if we have bacteria already, you will have, and more varied as multiple strains that you get there or different bacteria that you have, more difficult is to conquer and to contaminate something. So a little bit of some of the evidence that we have. There are more in our stand if you would like to come across late. Mineral analysis of complete dog and cat foods in the UK does not fill the whole 11 guidelines. If we look at the one says only 6% of the wet foods and 38% of the dry only met the guidelines. So when we say that something is complete and balanced, we are not even sure of that either. And again, it's best to do variety if you're not going to be sure. Some of them have excesses, some have had deficiencies. It's a really nice paper to read if you like to. And also, all those fish flavor or high in fish content, they found to have arsenic. Then, if we look at dog risk, which is a group of investigation in the University of Helsinki, they had this a complete internet-based survey all around the world with a lot of households for a long period of time, which averages was a 5-year using raw diet, but it could be shorter. It was a long range of time. They found that only 0.2% reported having a transmission of pathogens from raw pet food to a human family member during the time that raw food has been used in the household. And only 3 of that percentage, was tested to be the same pathogen found in the human sample and also confirmed into the raw pet food. Which this raises the question, if we want to actually blame the raw food to be contaminated, we have to analyze the fecal sample and find the same strain that we find on the food. And that will be a way to start a really good debate. But so far, we don't have that. And so that means that it's a 0.02% of all data that actually was foodborne transmission of pathogens. And another thing that it's also said is that, people are afraid of their kids, but in this survey, what they found is adults were infected due to hygiene methods and the use of utensils. Then we have another one which is similar to that, which is Nicole Renee-Kamek, who did another one and found, based on these results, she confirmed that transmission of pathogens from minimal processed diets to humans appear to be rare. She concluded that the potential or probable causes of pathogens transmissions are likely to depend on food hygiene and safety measures, and that increased food safety education should reduce the risk. And later on, I'm going to invite Brendan to talk about RawSafe and the measures that can be taken and where you can get those resources for that. Then about bones, because it's not the same, the bone from the barbecue, which is only bone, or carcasses, just like that, or raw meaty bones. Raw meaty bones means that they have meat in it, and it's appropriate to the size of your pet. So you're not going to feed a really big bone to a cat. So you need to adapt the size of the bone to the size of the pet. But the benefits are clear. The reduce of tartar in this study in the beagles was 35.5 in 3 days and 70% in 12 days. And in the second study, they had 81% of reduction in 3 days and 87 in 20 days. So the benefits, and they were just chewing once a day. And the reduction was very, very visible. And we know that we have an issue, a dental issue every day. So what can we do? Let's go to the practical stuff of things, and well, don't let me bore you with the scientific things. What questions should I ask? What should I do if I have a client that comes to my practice and tells me I feed raw? If you have the time, sit down and talk to them about ingredients, where they are sourcing that ingredients, the type of process. When I say process is, do they ground it? Do they freeze it? Do they cook it? What they are doing with that. And there's something about this. Most people don't know what processed food they're feeding. Most people, you ask them and they say, oh, it's a bag with a blue something, or, I forgot. I have the bag in my house. I can send you a picture later on. And this is because we stopped asking that in a regular basis. And we could ask that while they're waiting in the waiting room. We can, we have internet for that. We can have forms already made and actually, let me tell you what are you feeding? How are you feeding? Remember the food. Just call your husband if you don't know the bag you're feeding. Please tell me. I need information. If we start doing that in a daily basis, we will get more information, and we are going to get pet guardians that are more aware of that nutrition is that important. So I need to know where am I feeding. If they're feeding raw, make sure there's not just minces or from the abattoir that have never been frozen, never been anything. It's just to be cheap, to make it cheap, and make sure it comes from a good source. So what is the schedule? Are they doing weekly meals? Are they having variety? It's a ratio. Is it formulated? Does they add as supplements? The feeding schedule. Do they fast? Do they not? And then the normal ones, of course, the breed, the life stage, disease, usual, all the things. We need to understand that, when we talk about nutrition, those variables are important. If the inborn errors of metabolism, the disease, the life stage, how everything is important. And then, as we could see on the surveys, how their clients handle their food. That's a very important one. And we learned a lot during the pandemic about washing our hands. And there were a lot of studies that most people did it in the wrong way. So we can start by washing our hands properly. And then how they handle the food. They read labels if they know how to. The resources they use, if they're reading from an internet guru that you don't trust a lot, or they are actually in a community that they get well informed, they get papers, and they drag out their own opinions out of it. And then it's an opportunity to train your staff, like veterinary nurses, to do this job if you don't have the time. So if we have to look into a good or a bad client would be someone that is doing it to reduce costs, to only give mince and whatever the butcher can give them, bones that are not appropriate to the size because it all comes in a bag. Or a good client could be someone that actually did their research, they saw an improvement in their pet, and they are looking for the best way to feed. There are many brands, many manufacturers that actually are doing a great job in that. But all of this without being offensive. We have to guide them. We have to go around and debate. And if you don't feel like you have the strength or you don't have the information or resources, that is why the RFVS is for, to help you out. We want to have this safe space for veterinary professionals to speak their minds, to have their opinion, to debate, and to drag your own conclusions. We are not here to, collect people that are single-minded and that's it. No, we actually like to evolve, and to evolve we have to always be proven wrong and try to prove it right again and evolve from that, evolve from our mistakes. We have on our website we have a position statement where you can have 62 references that helps for each single point that the most common concerns veterinarians has. And you can look at that and start there. And if you like what you see, you write to us and we will happy. You can be member, you can be a supporter, whatever, and we'll have resources for you. Another resources, this is kind of a middle ground because it puts every single sort of food into it, but it could help you develop and improve your vet-client relationship, is this website all about dog food. That is interesting to look into, is allaboutdogfood.co.uk, I think, right? Where you can find the evidence, where you can make sure that what you read it's something that you can trust. First of all, you have to read the whole paper. I'm sorry to tell you that, but sometimes we have to read who made it, who is endorsing it, read the abstract, read the whole thing, read the methodology, read the conclusions, and ask questions. We are actually starting as a society. We are actually starting to have these debates on paper reviews and read about and discuss them live in a group of members. Also, you can talk to raw food manufacturers because, unlike kibble companies, raw food manufacturers actually give you all the information. They are desperate to be, part of the society, part of the movement, and they also have their vet or their nutritionist that can help you to whatever question you have. And they'll show you how they produce and manufacture everything. And then you have the Facebook communities with vets or nutritionist administrators. There are some of them. They are really good resources. You can look to them, you can ask. They're usually very good answering questions. And now is the space where people can actually, feel safe. But we have to expand this. We have to get out from the internet a little bit and start, that the veterinary practices start to be a place that the client can feel safe and speak their mind and speak whatever they are thinking about. And in another way, we can get into the internet and try to look whatever the resources they are given. When we talk about dog risk, it's an amazing research group. They already have some really good papers on atrophy in dogs. They have about metabolomics. They have the one I showed you before. And they need more funding to keep doing an amazing job because they are very thorough in whatever they do. So it's interesting to get into the website. Sometimes some of the things look that they're going to be in Finnish, but at the end you can translate all of that. Then you have RawSafe, which we are here thanks to them to speaking today, which is why am I speaking about RawSafe? Simply. Well, part of the profits that RawSafe does are going to be to fund research selected by the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society. So I'm going to invite here Brendan Clark to talk about RawSafe and how, what are we working on to make sure that raw feeding is safe. Go ahead. Is it on? You want to talk to me? Yeah.
Hi there, hopefully you can hear me with regards to this. So just to help people understand RawSafe, it's taking some standards which are taken from the British Retail Consortium 9001 and the Global Food Standards 22000, which to many of you out there will just be a group of numbers and mean absolutely nothing. And so what we were wanting to do is to take a standard that would incorporate those and bring them alongside an understanding for clients, an understanding for the veterinary profession, as well as the manufacturers, to actually enable us to ensure that these foods are made in an appropriate way for the raw production. And to differentiate some manufacturers that are out there that I wouldn't go to for raw foods, that maybe from the back of a butcher's shop, It's ambient product, it's not something that's stored appropriately, that we want to ensure that it's going to be reaching the pet in the best condition possible. So really RawSafe is there, inspected not by myself, not by me going along to a company and saying, I really like you, this is a pat on the back and this is a standard, but this is actually inspected by independent evaluation from a really large company, Evelyn Jones, who actually inspect a lot of food manufacturers for the human market, and they would be going out there initially, very much like practice standards, and I know many of you may have come across that, where you get to see the standards that you've got to be kept up to. Somebody will come along, they will make sure that you're attaining those standards, help you develop your practice. Well, this is very much what we're doing with the food manufacturers, but ultimately they've got to maintain that. So unlike the practice standards, where they don't just then surprise you with a visit, they will announce their visit and you'll re-prepare for it again. This is very much, there will be a surprise visit as well each year. So they're getting inspected twice a year to ensure that they are maintaining those standards, which means that we're not worrying about those standards dropping away. So realistically, that's where RawSafe is based at this point, is just maintaining that for evidence of when ingredients are coming in, that they're isolating those ingredients until they're thoroughly tested. There's no risk of cross-contamination, there's no end product contamination, all of those elements, all the way through to looking after the delivery of that product, making sure that any issues that arise, very much like black box thinking, are isolated and identified and corrected, so that those companies are on board with those. Very much in the 9001 fashion, that they really want to make sure the management structures are really involved in improving the nutrition that's delivered to those pets. So that's really what RawSafe is about currently. Ultimately, we encourage those companies to also be delivering product which is nutritious, so we were looking at the nutrient values so that people understand what's within those products. Then on to helping retailers, because there's an element of some of these products are now retailed by third parties, so we need to start developing their understanding. Now we do have some leaflets, I believe, that you can attain them on the stand. These are also available as a PDF on rawsafe.com that you can help to hand out to your clients so that they understand how to handle food safely without taking up your time. So they're readily available. We think it's a really good resource. It's a way of educating clients. Very much as many of them probably haven't had it explained, that you shouldn't be just tipping a bag of dry food into a container that you've just received, leaving it in there, topping it up and re-scooping it out and giving it to their dog, because there's a risk of mycotoxins. There's a risk of increased contamination within that barrel. So we're trying to make this easier for vets and nurses out there so that they can explain to clients how to do it safely and ultimately improve the standards of raw food nutrition wherever possible. And that really encompasses RawSafe in a nutshell. I think if there's anything else that you want to ask of Amaya or myself, please feel free.
Yeah. There's only, well, we had an anecdote before questions that we had on our first conference in the 2014. Chris Furley was a well-known zoo vet at that time, and he was surprised that we were discussing raw food as an option for feeding. And he said, that is so obvious to me that I do that with my animals at the zoo. So he was like, are we discussing this? So it's interesting whether if you think we are insane or it makes sense to you. The important thing is that we are really happy to debate and to discuss and to question even what I've said today. So thank you. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer whatever you want. Thank you.